space of Southern California where we've got some problems.
Okay, Kim, please read the title of this webinar because sometimes we forget. We get so excited.
Save Old Trappers Lodge. And that's an order, kids. We need to save Old Trappers Lodge. And Old Trappers Lodge has been saved before, but I don't know if it's ever been in more peril than it is as we head into this weekend. So I'm really glad you're here. We all have to put a lot of prayer energy into this plea because this is a very, very special folk art environment that has gotten itself into a pickle in this pandemic of ours.
Okay, so just to get started, just give some structure to this webinar. Yeah, go figure out if we're streaming on Facebook yet. Okay, so this webinar, we hope to come in around an hour. So for the next 15 minutes, Kim and I are going to go through some of the major milestones in the last several years about how Old Trappers Lodge has come to this point. And then we're so excited, we're going to show a 15-minute film, a documentary that our good friend Damian Sullivan made. And that's 15 minutes. And then when that ends, we hope to come in around 7:35 or so. And then at that point, everyone else, Marcia, who's a granddaughter of John Ehn, and Kristen, who's a great-granddaughter of John Ehn, will turn their cameras on along with filmmaker Damian Sullivan, and we'll talk. And we've got slides to sort of steer the. Okay, so we're good. So boring things. There's a chat tab and a Q&A tab, and it would really help me as questions come up, put them in the Q&A tab if they're questions, so I can see them, because sometimes people chat during webinars and that's great, but it's hard. Okay, Kim, we're going to get started.
I need you to do something for me.
What?
Can you see who's watching? I just think it's nice to check at the beginning.
Okay, I'm going to be very careful because sometimes I accidentally
You're not going to turn anything off. You're just showing me. Hello, friends. Thank you for scrolling.
We have lots of great friends.
So, friends, while you are logged into Big Marker, which is our webinar platform, you can chat together in that chat panel. If you're watching us on Facebook, which we're streaming to tonight for the first time in a while, you have your own dedicated chat, but we're not monitoring it. So don't feel bad if you ask questions and we ignore you. It's not that we don't love you. We just don't see it. And
hello, Katrina. Yes, we're going to get started. Okay, great.
Let us begin.
Okay. All right, I started the timer.
Who are we?
We are Esotouric, and
I'm Kim. This is Richard.
Hi.
Together we are
Save Buildings and Folk Art Environments.
We also have a tour company, and we love Los Angeles.
Brad, God bless you. Thank you, man. Thumbs up, Hogsamea. All right, so Trappers Lodge, without stopping. This is a composite of two photos of Trappers Lodge. It's a really complicated folk art environment at Pierce College. It's pretty hard to photograph, but by the time the documentary is over, I think you'll have a good sense of it. So what are we looking at?
Well, I just want to explain that we tried so hard to get to see Old Trappers Lodge.
Yes.
And Pierce College was closed for months and months and months.
Years, Kim,
during the pandemic. Yeah. And so finally, on my birthday this year,
February 7th, 2022.
This was Richard's present to me. He took me to a bunch of San Fernando Valley historical sites that I wanted to see, and we were finally able to get in and see Old Trappers Lodge. So that's what these early photos are from.
I think actually we were supposed to go to two more, but we were so happy to be here that anyway. All right. So on the left is a base of a statue, which some really interesting sculptures by John Ehn, and on the right is Boot Hill Cemetery, which is a big part of this folk art installation, and we'll get into all of that. Kim, what do we see on the screen here? This gives us a little more sense of scale and scope.
Yeah, so there's this wonderful family group of a mother and her children and her gun, and she's trying to get them safely across the continent. And we just popped behind to sort of get this terrific view on the left. And then there on the right are a couple of the bench sitter figures who are just there for you to actually sit down with and take a picture with if you care to.
Right, and this looks forward or looks back to Claude Bell's work at Knott's Berry Farm, and we'll get into all of that.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
And then this is the California State Landmark plaque, which, as you can see, is set in this wonderful scramble of stone. And this identifies it as California State Landmark number 939.5, which caused a lot of consternation and confusion for me because I found that there were a bunch of landmarks with that number. But what I realized was that California in the 80s was disinclined to honor folk art environments. And so when 10 of them were nominated together, they all got the same number to sort of say, all right, fine, we'll recognize these from the official, heights of the ivory tower, but we're not going to give them their own unique numbers.
All right, Kim. So just unique to our free webinars, we and our more complicated during the pandemic paid webinars, we had handouts, but we find almost everything we're talking about where we say it's on the, well, I hope everything we say on the webpage is on this URL.
Well, that's because immediately after we left Old Trappers Lodge, we realized that it was in a lot of trouble. And so we've created this preservation advocacy page, and it's also a timeline, and we've been adding videos and links and source material. So really everything you want to know about, a little bit about the history of Old Trappers Lodge, but a lot about the current crisis, how we got there, and how we hope to get out of it, is going to be and is on that link.
So for instance, we're about to get into interactions with Los Angeles Community College District, Board of Trustees, and California Public Record Act requests.
I'm not going to read you all this boring stuff from the school, but you can find it.
Esotouric.com/Old Trappers Lodge, no punctuation. Okay, without stopping. All right, so
Richard's been making really cool maps.
Where are we? So what I want to do is I want to draw. So
okay.
Red. All right, so I want to talk about the original location of Old Trappers Lodge, and I've circled that area. So that's just to the west of Burbank Airport. It was a motor court hotel with which John Ehn, and we'll get to this, who John is in a minute. In 1951, he comes to Los Angeles. He's a machinist at Lockheed, as many of our friends were at that time. And he buys a motor court hotel, and this folk art environment grows up around it. The Burbank Airport is much smaller. And by the time of his death in 1981, the Burbank Airport has decided it's going to seize the land by eminent domain that his motor court hotel and folk art environment sits on. And
just, actually, it's pretty interesting. I read all of the news stories from when this eminent domain claim was happening, and I had thought Old Trappers Lodge is it's a motel. It's a small parcel. But no, it was actually an expansive, it was almost a little village, because in addition to the original motel, there were lots of bungalows around it. Several hundred people lived there, and it was all affordable housing with the folk art environment.
We're gonna get into some photos and a little history of the original location, but where it is now and where the problem is out here in the West Valley, Pierce College. It was relocated with thanks to Seymour Rosen. We'll get into all of that in a minute. So that's where it is now, and then we have a close-up map of Pierce College.
But for those of you who may not be familiar with the general topography, the San Fernando Valley is flat
really
and
big,
enormous.
really big.
Both of these sites are in the San Fernando Valley. One sort of in the foothills, and one pretty far to the west.
I put a little map down here, an insert, so you can see where it is in relation to everything else, and we're going to keep moving. Okay, so what are we looking at, Kim, including the text that goes with this photo?
Well, big thanks to Michael Johnson, who made an independent short film at Old Trappers Lodge in 1979 and shared a few of the photographs that his crew took. And this shows what it was like in its original location, which is really special to see it that way. And you really get a sense, you would pull up, you'd see the motel sign, and you would see these figures, and either, that would attract you and you would pull up and stop and stay the night, or you'd be really frightened and you'd continue on if it wasn't for you. And these things are not for everyone, but for those they are for, they are a real draw. So here's a terrific photo of cast and crew
with John
hanging out with the artist, yes,
Old Trapper,
and some of his figures behind.
Great, and a shout out to the photographer, Janice Garza. Michael, I promised you we'd call her out, so thank you, Michael. Thank you, Janice. All right, so this is the original location. I want to talk about John Ehn, 1897 to 1981. So when he dies at the Motor Coat Hotel, they're just a couple of years until.
Well, it gets landmarked, and he dies soon after. So he did get to know that honor was bestowed upon his work, which is super cool.
But as almost as soon as he dies, eminent domain begins by the Burbank Joint Powers Authority for the airport, and they start to make a deal. They
always win, don't they?
All right, so these are photos of John. So on the left is a photo of John as he opens this motor court hotel about 1951.
He's really gone California there, right?
Yes.
Natty fella.
And on the right is a photo of him about 25 years later, with his really awesome chopper. And just a shout out to our long departed dear friend Charlie Sample, who was John's age. They both rode really awesome choppers till they died. And
Charlie used to date Janis Joplin, right?
Charlie used to date Janis Joplin. Yes. Okay. So
May I?
Yes, and we're no longer. This is no longer a photo at the original location.
Okay. So here's the story, and it's a great story. Knott's Berry Farm, Southern California, legendary attraction. I mean, take your Disneylands. Disneyland, even in the early days, was essentially a corporate vision coming out of a cartoon studio. Knott's Berry Farm is the real deal. The Knott's family had, they actually rented this boysenberry ranch property where they like sold meals to people at the side of the road. And they had all sorts of really cool hobbies. They were into going out into the California desert and exploring ghost towns at a time when they were still full of stuff.
Yeah.
And they just started collecting and building their own ghost towns and creating roadside attraction that attracted people. And one of the things that they did from the start was to bring in cool, creative Southern California people who could do things that were new and attractive and exciting to make people want to hang out at the Berry Farm and, eat a chicken dinner and spend some money. So one of these people was Claude K. Bell, who was a very gifted. Actually, I was researching Claude's early days. He started out as a sand sculptor. He did it at the Treasure Island Fair up in San Francisco, carving these incredible low relief scenes.
We have to keep moving. So what are we looking at again?
Okay, I'm sorry. So this is the figure. After seeing Claude Bell's sculptures at Knott's Berry Farm, John Ehn asked him, would you come and sculpt this character that I've created for myself, the Old Trapper, which I've named my lodge after. And it's sort of based on what I used to do before I got injured in middle life.
And so can I say so he was a trapper. So he grew up
real deal.
Upper Peninsula of Michigan. One of the most beautiful, breathtaking places in the entire world is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So he grew up as a 19th century trapper.
Okay, you're right. We're talking too much. Keep going. So this is the sculpture that Claude Bell made for him. And
explain why he was
I know, but we're talking too much. Keep going.
Okay, so Knott's Berry Farm. Okay, Knott's Berry Farm. Claude Bell. Claude Bell is the artist that John commissions to do his Old Trapper sculpture. Here is Claude Bell sculpting. He's sculpting this statue on the left. This is at the entrance to Knott's Berry Farm. So core to Knott's Berry Farm. This is going to look familiar.
I remember these from when I was a little kid.
These are at Knott's Berry Farm.
Me,
these are Claude Bell, but John duplicates them at Old Trapper's Lodge. And of course, Claude Bell did the dinosaurs at Cabazon. Cabazon. And of course,
you see these on the road out to Palm Springs.
Right. And Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure 1985 features them. All right. So I think we get the sense of how important this is. So Kim, let's jump in. The man, John dies. Seymour Rosen, folk art, environment, art historian, and preservationist, walks in. Let's start with these two photos of Seymour, top and bottom.
So in the top photo, Seymour is at a place he spent a lot of time at when he was much younger, which is the Watts Towers. He was one of the people involved with documenting this really special folk art environment in the Watts neighborhood of South Los Angeles, and decided that he was going to make it his life work to travel around and document people, mostly in the West, who were doing things that were completely self-taught and funky and outside of the art historical mainstream.
Right.
And in 1976, he got to do a major exhibition at SF MoMA for the bicentennial called In Celebration of Ourselves, which was all about this stuff. And at the bottom, he's with someone I was very glad I got to meet, Leonard Knight, who built Salvation Mountain.
Salvation Mountain.
Out by the Salton Sea.
Yep.
By East Jesus.
Yep.
And that's all made out of paint. And this is the nonprofit that he founded in an old Victorian house, an Edwardian house in Hollywood.
Speak up.
He founded this nonprofit in Hollywood in order to document and celebrate and preserve these spaces.
And so Spaces is the nonprofit that is the entity that gets this folk art environment out of the Motor Coat Hotel because the bulldozers are coming and brings them to Pierce.
Because it's a lot of work. And all of the documentation is online. Spaces has now been folded into a nonprofit in Wisconsin.
Right. It's all on the URL, esotouric.com/Old Trappers Lodge. It's all there. This is a Seymour Rosen photo of the original installation at the Motor Court Hotel.
Go back one. So that photo shows you a bit of what is known as the Boot Hill Cemetery, where there are a lot of gravestones, some of them comical, some of them figurative. Keep going.
Okay, great. There's another. This is the office of the original
Which
motor
doesn't
code.
exist anymore. This
Right.
was not saved.
This
The wall of
this,
faces.
I,
Some of that survives.
Okay. That's Boot Hill Cemetery with the arm that pivots. Okay.
So you saw the mother figure?
No, Kim, we're
all right.
Kid. Okay, so Kim.
Here's where the problem.
Okay, so right, so
okay, so like 10 years ago, a couple of professors on the campus, and this is an agricultural school, somehow found this space, which is it's a very large campus, and this is tucked in the middle of nowhere. But they found it, and the students found the artwork upsetting because there was no interpretation there, and they decided then and there on, I think to make the students happy that they were going to do something about it. And what they decided to do was to campaign to get it removed because not understanding it, they decided it was a bad thing.
All right, so this is the statue is called Kidnap. Okay.
And behind it is the fight. And these are the two sculptures in a large group of sculptures that have become the biggest problem in terms of people not understanding them and being unhappy with them.
All right, let's quickly get to the fight and just give us a little more. We'll get to these after, but let's just quickly. So what you have a graduate degree in art history. I don't. Go.
I didn't need a graduate degree in art history. I needed
but you
to
do
pull,
have one.
I do. I needed to pull up all of the Los Angeles Times coverage of when the artwork was moved, including a description of what John Ehn meant when he sculpted the fight, which he subtitled The Mighty Americans. He was showing that out on the prairie, when the native people confronted these pioneers and they fought each other, nobody won. And they were both killing each other. They're both mortally wounded.
Right.
And the story, as he told his family when he made this piece, was that both of them left families behind who were vulnerable and hungry, and they should have just shared their food. So I know you look at it, it's really shocking. But if you hear the story, maybe you can have a better conversation.
Moving on, we'll pick this up after the film.
That's cool.
With Kristen and Marcia. Okay, so this is a map now, a detailed map of Pierce College and where Old Trappers Lodge is. I put in the parking lot, El Rancho parking lot B. It's currently not open to the public. So,
but if you bring a box, you can stand on the box and look over the fence.
I don't want anyone to suggest that by putting the name of the parking lot it's adjacent to that I'm helping you figure out where it is. Boot Hill. Okay, we just got quickly, Coop. We're almost there. Let's walk through some establishing shots to give us a sense of the Pierce College.
So when we visited, there were tons of pieces. A lot of the paint was faded, so you had to get in close. But everywhere you looked, there was something to see and read and enjoy and discover.
Again, Knott's Berry Farm, right? Claude Bell, right? But old Trapper made those. These are just wonderful. These are just wonderful. And this is Lonesome George, and we'll wrap up the webinar with Lonesome George. Okay.
So just to get you up to speed, because we've been through a lot of documentation since the beginning of the year.
These are milestones in the last 2 years that have brought us to where we are now. And where we are now is that Pierce College has said...
Don't spoil it. Just
okay.
milestones.
Okay.
Go.
Sorry. Okay.
Let me do this.
Yeah.
So the faculty spent years figuring out what to do. And then in the middle of the pandemic, with nothing else to do and campus closed, they decided to issue a resolution through the union that called for the removal of Old Trappers Lodge and asked the LACCD board, the overseers of all of those community colleges in the district, to take it off campus. And then just a month later to the day, the school paper said in an editorial, hey, it's kind of not right that Pierce is closed. It's this giant open space in the middle of the community that everyone used to enjoy, and it's been closed all through the pandemic. Open it up so people can be here. And then in the board minutes of the LACCD, an appraisal report was submitted by Escher Associates. But actually, no, I had to get this from a public records request because this was never published.
Okay, so let me help.
No, that's fine. Just keep going. No, we're fine, please. Okay, so a month later, in their minutes, they agree to pay for this report that they've actually already received. So they're doing things really under the radar. That's all I want people to know. And all of the links are at the URL, esotouric.com/oldtrapperslodge.
Okay. Okay.
And then, having received this report, they have the sketchiest motion I've ever seen. I've been researching this since February of this year, but it took me a really long time to find this because they don't say Old Trappers Lodge. They say approve donation of surplus property. They don't say California State Landmark number 939.5. surplus property.
All I'm trying to ask you to say, Kim, is this report, which cost almost $30,000 by a reputable art appraisal house, basically says this is an incredibly complicated, important installation which will cost several $100,000 to properly move with heavy equipment
and delicate packing.
And so the trustees of the LACCD decide that they're just going to declare it surplus property
and not publish this document. We got it through a public records request.
Okay.
And then in the school paper, one of these two professors who'd been beating the drum to get it removed because apparently that kidnap figure, which is not an Indian, it is a sexually very charged and horrible scene of a man carrying a woman away, but he's not a Native American. Because they decided he was a Native American, they wanted it removed, and so he told the school paper that the board had recently approved donating Old Trappers Lodge, not surplus property, to the Valley Relics Museum, never mentioned in any discussion at the board.
Okay, so throughout March and April of 2022, we are giving public comment at these LACCD meetings, which is a really deeply fascinating process, and I encourage all preservationists and activists to use public comment at board of trustees meetings everywhere you go. We're making them, and then
oh boy, so these pictures show up online, and they are not anybody using the best practices described in the Esther Associates report on how to move the artwork.
So these photos we're about to show you were from April 15th, which is in the midst of our activism and outreach to the board via public comment. So what are we looking at, Kim? This is April 15th.
Yeah, so these were shared online, and they were shared as being for the benefit of the Valley Relics Museum, which is an organization that collects
California
signs.
Public Benefit Corporation, Kim.
Yeah. But if you look them up at the Secretary of State, they don't really file their documents very often. But
they're better known as a nonprofit, California Public Benefit Corporation.
And as you can see, it's sort of like going on safari and killing an animal and putting your foot on it after it's dead. This is not how you move a California State landmark, but it is how they moved a California State landmark.
So this is not how Escher and Associates report that cost almost $30,000 suggested they do this.
No, every piece was supposed to be individually wrapped in special boxes.
Okay, so
that brings us to this weekend.
So it's the 14th of October. The top of this flashcard deck slide, whatever you want to call it, says October 17. It's October 14. So what's going to happen in 3 days on Monday, Kim?
Pierce College has let it be known because the family said we really don't like what Valley Relics did with the artwork in April. They said, okay, fine. Why don't you guys just come and pick it up yourself?
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, we did it. We did it in 23 minutes or so. Okay, we did. It's good.
The more you talk, the longer it takes to see the film.
Okay, Kim.
I blame myself.
Okay, I love you so much. Okay, so now we are going to show you a 15-minute documentary, which our dear friend and great Damien he found Tail the pup in storage. Okay, found Tail the pup. Okay.
Damien is also someone who's a big part of our campaign to save the giant chili bowl.
Right.
Didn't go so well.
He met Marsha and Kristen, whom you'll meet in about 17 minutes. He met them out at Old Trappers Lodge. They got permission from the Pierce College to visit, and he made a 15-minute film. And we're going to show you this film, and it's everything. And then everyone, Marsha, Kristen, and Damien, will turn their cameras and microphones back on, and we'll jump into the middle of it. So I'm gonna close the slide, and I'm going to pull up
In 1941, a retired trapper from Michigan named John Ehn traveled to California to embark on a new adventure in the place that had always captured his imagination, the American West. Raised in his father's lumber and fishing camp, he lived a colorful life, traveling America, trapping everything from foxes to alligators. And he grew up with a deep passion for the history of the American frontier, tales of gamblers and gunslingers, and larger-than-life characters who made the Old West a place of legend and wonder. Arriving in California, John opened a log cabin motel in the town of Sun Valley. Inspired by his love of the American frontier, he decided to turn his motel into a living history museum devoted to the myths and tall tales of the Old West. He called it the Old Trapper's Lodge and transformed himself into the character of the Old Trapper, regaling guests with tales of the wild frontier and eventually building an elaborate Boot Hill cemetery with comic gravestones like the ones he'd seen on his travels across the country. On a visit to Knott's Berry Farm in 1951, John saw the work of sculptor Claude Bell, creator of the famous bench-sitter statues and later the Cabazon dinosaurs, and he hired Bell to sculpt a statue of himself dressed as the Old Trapper for the front of the motel. Watching Bell work, John soon realized that he could perform the same process himself, and he spent the next 3 decades building his own larger-than-life sculptures on the grounds of the lodge, often using his own family members as models for the casts, covered in plaster and breathing through a straw. He soon graduated to even larger works depicting dramatic events that had occurred in the history of the wild frontier. The Old Trapper's Lodge soon gained fame as a unique California folk art environment, and in 1981, it was officially recognized as California State Historic Monument 939.5. John Ehn died that same year. And a few years later, the expansion of the Burbank Airport claimed the land occupied by Trapper's Lodge. An agreement was reached in 1988 between John Ehn's family and nearby Pierce College for Old Trapper's Lodge to be relocated to the Pierce campus, where it would live on as a thriving landmark open to the public for all to enjoy. Now, almost 35 years later, a small group of administrators at Pierce College has subjectively reinterpreted this historic landmark and claim that it's an offensive entity that they've decided needs to be permanently eliminated from the campus. Erecting a fence around the entire area, Pierce College has quietly engaged in the deliberate dismantling and eradication of this California state landmark, and they've allowed a team of collectors from the Valley Relics organization to forcibly excavate and tear up the entire Boot Hill Cemetery and surrounding relief statues, breaking many of them into pieces in the process and tossing them into piles in the back of a pickup truck. Only the larger concrete statues remain, earmarked for removal or demolition after October 17th, unless John Ehn's family can find a way to remove them on their own by that final deadline. On September 8th, John Ehn's granddaughter Marcia and great-granddaughter Kristen were allowed to go behind the locked gates to see the dismantled remains of their family's legacy.
Now I know why it's closed off, but I want to see how badly they've taken care of it. Oh, I should say, or that lack thereof. Oh, wow. Wow. Remember, I was here in November 2018. Thank God I have pictures that can show the difference, because half of the collection is gone. It's unbelievable. I don't even know. I mean, you've got, I don't know. This is desecrated. The cemetery it's like someone came and uprooted.
Oh, there was a big resurrection and we missed it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If it was the second coming, we missed it. I'm in awe because there's so much destruction and it just looks like it's torn out, and truly I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't realize that it would just be, you allowed someone to come in here with, it looks like with jackhammers and just dig up whatever you want.
The metal braces, those had tombstones and or wooden signs leaned up against them.
this is all broken. You know, this would have been the, you know, the shackles like a prisoner would have been in, and
And then that alligator.
but all of these are just, this is, well, no, this is broken.
This one's on its face here. Broken. The long one right here. Well, there was over 40 wooden tombstones that filled out this boot hill. And they all had funny little sayings on them about who laid there and why they ended up here in Boot Hill. And there's only 2 left. One's got a pair of boots hanging off of it that have rotted. And this one you can't read anymore. So
There was cement ones, you can see those knocked down, or, I don't know, broken. This is hard to take in.
it's very sad.
Here's pictures. I was here on November 23rd, 2018. So here you can see what was, oh, she's fallen down. That's her laying face down. Not me, but.
Right.
Hey.
Oh, that's.
That was Moonflower. Moonflower, 1831 to 1871. Exotic Frisco beauty danced her way to Boot Hill. I mean, how can you not think that's funny? That's funny.
There was over 45 wooden signs that have been taken from here that Valley Relics took.
And then there was concrete.
And then
ones
the
that-
concrete ones that came back, and that's the video we saw of them jackhammering them up and putting them in the back of a pickup truck. There's nothing. It's all, there's one rotted one there, and what's left of one here.
Ironfoot Eva, and I bet this is where poor Ironfoot Eva
There's
was.
There's her feet.
So here's her feet. So she's gone.
The statue over here with the gal, the saloon gal that's got her hand up over her head, that's my sister's face. And we tried to have her come today, but it was too painful for her. She didn't want to see one of her arms missing. It's been broken off the statue and is nowhere to be seen. And the gentleman, which was my daddy, half of his face is gone. So there's been a lot of neglect, and I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I don't want to see it in a landfill.
This is a California State Historical Landmark that, because you have, I don't even know, I would say 0.03% of people that thinks this needs to be hidden and covered. This is my childhood. This is my legacy.
This is lovely Louise, my mom. I think she's the best looking of all of them. She was the oldest daughter, and then Aunt Lorraine, and I can't remember what her tag name was either, but Grandpa used when they said he incorporated real life things. Look at her bracelet. This bracelet's actually a piece of jewelry.
Wow.
You know, in Lonesome George we see real teeth. I mean, whatever he had, he incorporated. Here he's got some little stones and rocks, a little jewel on the necklace. Even in her bracelet, he's got some jewelry. Some of the stones are missing, but he would take old jewelry and decorate the girls with it.
One of the statues Pierce College objects to the most is a statue called The Fight, which depicts a battle to the death between 2 men, one white and one Native American.
I'm gonna give you my standpoint, okay? Because I was a child. Again, I'm the oldest great-grandchild of the trapper. So for me, you gotta remember, I loved watching the Old West, Gunsmoke, Wild Wild West, anything cowboy. So to me, this is what it was. And if you notice, it's not this savage man killing this other man. We've got them fighting. So he's stabbing him, he's defending himself, or vice versa.
And he classified them both mighty Americans.
both of them.
Yeah, it says it on the sign
Says
right
it
there.
right there.
So this statue isn't saying one faction is bad or another faction is bad. This is what happened at the time.
That's right. That's right. This is the old trapper. This is John Ehn. This is the man.
So that's your great-grandfather.
That's my great grandfather, and I will show you. This is the picture I always show so people can see what I'm talking about when I say this is who I go to for my fashionista.
Oh wow, that looks just like him.
Isn't that great? Oh yeah. This one's intact. I mean, obviously it needs some cleaning up and paint, and I guess he doesn't hurt their feelings. Here's the placard of the landmark. Tells all about it.
Old Trappers Lodge is one of California's remarkable 20th century folk art environments. It represents the life work of John Ehn, 1897 to 1981, a self-taught artist who wished to pass on a sense of the Old West derived from personal experiences. Using his family as models and incorporating memorabilia, the old trapper followed his dreams and visions to create the lodge and its boot hill. California Registered Historical Landmark number 939 on March 25th, 1985, and this is what it's come to.
Wow.
I am in such awe and disbelief that someone would actually do this to a California historical landmark. I mean, just from a human aspect, how do you destroy someone's art that they've worked, you know, the majority of his life on as a storyteller?
You can't wipe someone's dream away just because you don't like it, just like she's saying, or because you can't relate to it. You don't have the right to do that. And it was treated like it was their property. And now that it's been desecrated, now it's our property again, and it's back on us to have it resolved.
And half of it's not here.
We don't even
So
know
that's
what
the
happened
next
to it,
battle.
or if it's been preserved, if they've sold it off, given away, we don't know where it's at. So we're pretty devastated, and we'll take any and all help that we can get to stop this madness and find a home for our grandpa's legacy.
We appreciate you.
Oh boy. Thank you, Damien. I think you really told the story as it needed to be told. Thank you.
Okay. So, Kristen and Marcia and Damien, turn
Join
your
us,
cameras
please.
and microphones on. Excellent. Damien, hello. Damien, how's Zoe?
She's doing okay. She just put soda all over the bed. So, typical Friday night.
Excellent. Zoe's Damien's granddaughter. She's awesome.
So, the film was made on a blisteringly hot day, and I want to thank you all for not just documenting it in the way that you did, but actually putting up with the pain of having to be there. That was not an easy thing, and letting us sort of tag along with you, letting the whole world tag along with you is a real gift. And I hope it'll help to save your grandfather and your great grandfather's work, because it deserves to be saved.
Okay, so just before we get started with Marcia, the granddaughter of one of Old Trapper's granddaughters, Kim, we had a question come up in the Q&A tab, and thank you, Alan, for putting.
Yes.
Thank you, Alan, for putting this in the Q&A tab. Is it legal to remove or destroy the contents of a designated California state landmark without obtaining removal from some designated California commission or authority? Does a California state landmark designation provide no protection for such landmarks? The answer to your second question, Alan, is a resounding yes, that is correct. The California State Landmarks Commission has absolutely no concern about this whatsoever. There's no authority, and they'd like a heads up if the plaque is moved, but they're kind of busy.
Yeah, what we found in our preservation work is that the most powerful landmarking that you can get is a municipal landmarking, whatever city you're in, or county, if you're in unincorporated Los Angeles County, that has some teeth, because that's a protection that you can go to your local politicians and say, hey, this is protected under your ordinance. National Register, actually, people seem a little bit afraid of tampering with a National Register landmark. So there's some like honor there where you're like, oh, I don't know. Do we really want to?
But this has none.
But this is a California landmark. Again, I mean, Pierce could have said, oh, it's a California landmark, let's treat it right. But there's no one breathing down their neck and making them do that.
We've been to the State Landmarks Commission. There's no interest. Marcia, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good. All right. So Marcia, on the screen, the title of this slide reads Marcia, granddaughter. So you are one of Old Trapper's granddaughters. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's get a photo of tell us your mother's first name.
So this is my mom, Louise Ehn, and that's her statue on the right, which was Grandpa's ode to her, and he called her Lovely Louise, which we all agree.
I love it. I love it.
And when you say it's a statue of her face is the model. This was actually cast from life.
Yeah, so my grandpa worked out the back of his garage. He actually had, back in the day, unheard of, but he had a four-car garage, and that's where he built these statues. And we lived right next door to my grandma and grandpa. So we got to be there when he was making them, but he made face casts of any of us that he could grab. and he would use those for his important statues. Now, you saw the wall of faces earlier. Those were of his own creation. But when he made the statues, he made them from faces representing his family members.
Right. And so, Marcia, are there any statues extant that are masks or molds of your face?
I'm embarrassed to say, but as a young adult, Grandpa tried, but I got a little panicky before the plaster of Paris settled on my face. And I think my mom knew that would happen, because she's like, oh, I think she's got plaster in her eyes. Take it off. So I didn't manage one, but my mom, one of my brothers, my dad, my sister, my aunts and uncles, they're all there.
And who is on the screen? The lady on the screen is one of your sisters, correct?
Yeah. So I just have one sister, Judy. Right. And the two people that are featured there, that's the minor 49er and his daughter Clementine. And the gentleman is the face of my mom's brother, the only boy, the only sibling that is male, and that's Uncle Clifford. That's his face. And then along with my sister's face is on those two statues.
Perfect. So let's just take a breath. Kristen, I want to hold off bringing you on for just a couple more minutes. Marcia, so the film was really fantastic. You guys did a great job of laying out how you're feeling. Having just seen the film and been able to sit upright after viewing it immediately, do you have anything else that came up that didn't get thrown out there in Damien's great documentary?
You know, it's hard to capsulize a lifetime of a person with a few pictures and, you know, abbreviation of the story. Grandpa loved his family, and he did anything and everything for them. He was hardworking, a kind man, very sensitive man, and he doesn't deserve what's happening. And I think probably the most emotional part of the video was seeing him as a young man and then as an older man, and what he and knowing in my mind and heart what he had accomplished in that span of years, to then be faced with the destruction that we saw at the end of the video of what's happened to that life. I don't know if that answers.
Good. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So,
And actually, you know, that makes me think of the fact that he lived very much out in the open. I mean, he had a roadside attraction. People read about him in the newspaper and went out to see Old Trapper's Lodge. He's in a Chris Christopherson movie. But
he is in a Chris Christopherson movie.
But all of the things that have happened, all of these negative things about misinterpreting what the artwork is and saying that it needs to go and surreptitiously doing things to get rid of it, all of that's been done in the dark. And I think that there's a real interesting disparity between someone who lives out in the open, who provides hospitality to hundreds of people who need a good place to live that's affordable and comforting, and people who feel like it's necessary to attack an artwork and not even do it openly and honestly and take the slings that they might get from people who disagree, but do it in secret. It's two very different ways of dealing with the world, I think.
And I think there's probably two options on this whole story. One is they're just mean-spirited, destructive people that have a larger plan in mind. Or it's people that open the book of John Ehn's life and they read or looked at a couple of pictures and they happened to be statues that they didn't like, and they made their judgment call and closed the book, and they don't know the full story. They don't know the history. They don't know the interpretation. And what a shame, because to me, it's a best-selling book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
and
is.
I think it's mostly the latter. I don't think that they're doing this because it's fun to destroy. I think they made their mind up. None of them are art historians. I don't think they've told the press, oh, no one knows how this artwork came to campus. No one really understands its story. Well, that's not true. All you have to do is a newspaper search, or there's even a Huell Hauser episode you can watch if you're not able to read. So they've chosen to be ignorant. No. And they've taken.
No, they haven't chosen to be ignorant. I think this is from the standpoint of the Los Angeles Community College District, which is the body that are making these decisions.
Yeah.
They are getting advice from the teachers union and from administrators at Pierce and the president of Pierce. But at the end of the day, LACCD is making the decision, and I believe the decision is entirely one of land use, and it's convenient. The desire to remove historic resources from a site that will have an environmental impact report prepared for it. Yeah. So I want to sort of. Oh, Damien, you're getting up. I was just going to ask you to come into focus.
Oh no, I'm here.
Okay. So Kristen, hold on. Kristen, I have not forgotten you at all. But before we get too far away from Damien's film, Damien, we could talk for 4 hours about all the work you do. But I just want to ask you. We threw you into the middle of this. So can you just give us a couple of minutes on your trip out to shoot this footage and meet these two wonderful women and your immersion, immediate deep immersion in the world of Old Trapper's Lodge?
Yeah, no, it was, I'm first of all, I just want to say that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have taken this adventure, because I feel like I spent, I think there's a line in To Kill a Mockingbird, to know a man, you just have to walk in his shoes for a few minutes. And I had to walk around in John Ehn's world for, just a few hours is like getting to, find out, see the life of Walt Disney. Like I felt like I saw another Walt Disney. And it was great. I mean, to go out and if you, even in the video, if you actually see the space itself and you stand among it, you can feel the presence of the man who invented it. I mean, the spirit. It's when I first heard about the space being threatened, I had read about it and seen pictures, of the installation, and it just doesn't give you a sense of the scope of it. But to go out there and see it, even in the state that it's in now, what's left is so unbelievable that my mind would be blown if I had the opportunity to see what it looked like in its, full collection, because it really must have been just amazing. And you just get you get a sense the second you just walk around that this was a man who had just a life force. I mean, just it's I think what attracts people to Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn and Butch Cassidy. I mean, the way that the signs are written with the backwards letters and the silly jokes and everything going on. I mean, you just it's like a root beer and a snickerdoodle on a hot day. Like, who doesn't, you can't not like it, It's there's just the idea that anyone could see that there was any kind of malcontent or I mean, this just seemed to me the mojo of this entire place and of this family. And Marcia and Kristen are such decent people, and you can tell that. I saw photographs, going through the research of all the family members gathered around him. I mean, you can't have all these family members, generations that love you, unless you were really just a, heck of a guy. I mean, you have a picture up of Marcia in a, she's got a Western wear outfit on. I mean, it's like, I want to watch Davy Crockett now, there's no question that what was here was just a thing of great goodness and invention and cleverness. And
we're going to save it.
Right.
We're going to save it.
We're going to save it because this is the American mythology, the Western mythology, the San Fernando Valley creative hub, and it deserves to have a chance. I mean, a lot of effort was put into saving it in the 80s, so we're not going to let it go now.
We're not going to let it go. Kristen,
and my granddaughter is speaking in here. Her head.
Well, why don't you? Yeah, let's. Damien, you want to have Zoe say hi?
She'll wander in at some point. I can't get her now, but she would love to sit right in that picture you have up of Marcia's dad right there on the bench. Like, that is exactly the kind of thing that Zoe would love to take a picture, and that she'd jump right up and find that to be, what's the malice in that? That's just it's a awesome bench sitter. These are the forerunners to all the bench sitters you see all over America. If I go to downtown Glendale, they have one of Ben Franklin. They're all over in every town in America. He started, from these inventions.
Well, I've been thinking I want to make one now. Okay. I'm inspired.
Damien, thank you. And by the way, the best root beer I ever had in my life was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, having driven 90 minutes to get it. Okay, Kristen, are you there? Can we bring you into focus and get you to start telling us your story? Kristen, are you there?
I think she might be.
There we go. Oh, Kristen, do we have you? Okay, let's
perhaps we do not have
okay,
Kristen.
let's Marcia, without stopping. Who is on the screen? Who is on the screen without stopping?
So that's Lonesome George, who is named for my dad. So I call that Dad. That's my daddy, the husband of lovely Louise. And he's a son-in-law of the old trapper. And he's over there all by himself just looking at those saloon girls. And that's, I think, why he's lonesome. I'm not sure. But he was positioned well there.
I have to say, when we visited, I didn't know he was there. And then I turned around and he sort of startled me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get Kristen to log back in. So Marcia, do you want to start to give us a sense of what is happening now? We put on the table this October. I'm sorry, let's take a step back. Marcia, do you want to talk about how we connect it? Let's have perhaps an origin story is in order here. How so?
Well, that was me because
okay.
I was looking at the Facebook posts about the artwork being moved, and then I noticed that there were several family members who were identifying themselves in Facebook comments on these various Valley Relics pages. I see Kristen now, and saying, "Hey, that's my grandpa's stuff, and where'd you get that, and what's going on?" And it wasn't really clear what was going on, but through Facebook, I was able to connect with some of your extended family, and then we all started talking.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to interrupt you. Kristen, you're back on. Say hello. I can't wait to hear your voice.
But we're waiting.
Are you?
I'm wait.
Oh, there you are. Hello.
Excellent. Okay, Kristen.
I
Great.
can hear you loud
Thank
and
you.
clear.
Thank you. Okay, so Kristen, you are your grandfather is on the screen here, Lonesome George. That's Marsha's father. Do you want to tell us a bit about your grandfather? Oh my gosh, we're losing her.
Oh, your mic is
mic
off.
is
Well,
off.
can you turn your mic off on, Kristen? If not, we will move on.
Oh my gosh.
Can you turn
Okay.
her microphone on?
I can't turn her microphone on.
You're on now.
You're on.
Hi.
Kristen, hi. So
Don't touch your mic.
tell us about Lonesome George.
Okay, we have
Can you-
technical difficulties.
You hear me now?
Oh, you want to log back in? Maybe that'll help.
No. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're losing Kristen.
Marsha,
I'll talk
are
about
you
him all.
there?
Yeah, I'll talk about him all day
George.
long.
Okay.
Okay.
So my dad used to work for Grandpa on the trap line. That's where he met my
I've
mom.
already done
And-
that.
That's where he met my mom, and they got married. And that was back, gosh, my mom was probably 18 or something, and my dad was maybe in his early 20s. So that's back in the late 1930s that all happened. He was my dad was a great man. There are 6 of us kids. He worked couple of jobs. He helped my grandpa run the Old Trappers Lodge. He was also a tool and die maker. The oldest child is Glenn Stolp, which is Kristen's dad. And he's featured in some of the pictures that you saw with Grandpa with his really cool coonskin hat and a couple of children. One of those was Kristen's dad as a little boy. So my dad, we lived in close proximity to Grandma and Grandpa, and we were just extended family. I mean, he was a great man, loved his family, loved Grandpa, and did anything and everything he could for him, and vice versa. So that's George. So he was never lonesome because he was surrounded with too many of us.
Sure, that's like a really large man, and you call him tiny, and everyone thinks it's the cutest thing in the world.
Yeah.
All right, so Marsha, this is what I'd like to do because we're having some problems with Kristen, and I want her to send us off. But Marsha, I know that I want to get back to this deadline of October 17, which is in 3 days.
And what's
What's
going on?
And what's going on? So Marsha, I know that the two of you worked on a statement. Do you want to read that statement, and we can take it from there?
I can do that. Kristen, are you with us? Can we hear you?
Sounds like she's
No.
falling down a
hole.
Okay.
flight of stairs with
Okay.
a lot of buckets.
So
Yeah,
so
so-
Marsha, let's go with this statement.
So let me tell you, we have been working with Pierce College since 2020 to try to resolve their agenda of removing the collection. I don't think that all of the interactions have been genuine. Where we find ourselves now is, and I'll read you what Kristen and I pretty much really want to say, is basically that our attorney is navigating the path to stop the clock and to obtain some more time for us to find an appropriate home for the collection. Because as of Monday, it was slated for elimination, removal under any terms of all of those statues that are left standing. So we're counting on our attorney to have stopped that clock, and we'll know shortly what that looks like. But we appreciate any and all suggestions, any help, any support. If you can contact Esotouric, you'll have mine and Kristen's emails at the end of this. But again, this madness really needs to stop, and we need to find a new home. And we need help doing that, especially if we're navigating through the legal system. So we thank all of you for being here today and taking just a little peek at the mountain that we're trying to tear down here. And that's kind of our goal is, I wish I could tell you more, but that's pretty much all I can say right now.
That's absolutely fantastic.
It's actually a really encouraging update because we've all been watching this Monday approaching with a lot of dread. So that just the fact that probably nothing is going to happen on Monday is just the most beautiful news. And you only just got it. So we had already scheduled this webinar, and we were really happy to be able to end it with a little positive hope. But also just the reminder that this is something that is ongoing. There is no solution. We need help. We need as many people as possible to pay attention, to talk about this, to share the information, and to care, because simply caring and paying attention in the next month or two is really going to make all the difference for Old Trappers Lodge.
Wait, Marcia, hold on just 1 second. Kristen, can we please try one more time? I hope we can hear you.
Please, no more gremlins. I don't think we can hear her. Okay, Marcia, speak for your family.
All right, Marcia, you're gonna have to speak for Kristen and yourself. So I think we're gonna wrap this up. Tell us. You've done a great job of telling us where you think we are for the next couple of weeks, and looking ahead. What is your hope and your dream?
Well,
in the big picture,
I'm asking people to think bigger, to dream bigger. If you think little and you dream little, you're going to be really successful with little dreams and little hopes. So I'm asking you to think big, think outside of your box, think of ways that you can help us, think of people you might know that could come alongside of us in any way. Contact your city councilman, contact the legislature, the ruling bodies over the Los Angeles community college districts. Get in touch with us with any suggestions or help that you can give us. We just appreciate you. And, I'd hate for this to have been your family or possibly your legacy. So I don't know. Get on board.
That's beautiful.
Get on board.
Okay. That's absolutely beautiful.
Keep an eye on that webpage that we've created, esotouric.com/Old Trappers Lodge. I'm updating it all the time. In fact, I just updated it with something new. I had forgotten that the way that I first learned about all of this was an email from someone on the Pierce College campus who loves Old Trappers Lodge and had heard that something might be going on. And they shared with me from August of 2020 a mailing that went out. And it was clear to me that a lot of people got this mailing and didn't really want to say anything about it because we're in the middle of a pandemic. It was probably nothing was going to come of it. But also the mailing came from the head of the campus college union. And do you really want to pick a fight with the person who leads your union who has a problem with an artwork? Yeah. It was a really awkward situation. So we were glad of that tip. People are always giving us tips. And so I did update the timeline with that original email and the resolution that had gone out to the LACCD. And the resolution is a real piece of work, I must say, because it says, well, I mean, since all of John Ehn's artwork was dedicated to defaming the Indians, it needs to be removed because our governor of California said that we need to apologize to the Indians. It's like, okay, but your first supposition isn't what this artwork's about. So it's too bad that was never in an open debate. But here we are.
We're
going to keep fighting.
Kristen, I'm gonna wait, Marsha, I'm gonna interrupt you again. Kristen, I'm gonna ask you to try one more time. Maybe we can hear you. I just so want to hear you.
Richard, we have gremlins.
Okay. Kristen, I don't know. We're gonna wrap this up. Damien, can you turn your microphone on and we're gonna say goodbye to you?
I am. I did. Thank rather. You. We have a little mass chaos here.
Okay, well, That's what happens.
We got Woody right here. We're gonna play with Woody. See, this it continues. Generations later, everybody still likes their Western myths. Come on,
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, you're
all right, so
silly fella.
Damien, I want to thank you for making this movie. It's just an absolutely wonderful 15-minute piece.
It was a privilege. It was more of an honor. It was a gift to me from them to be able to share their a moment in their life. They're a great family, and it was a privilege.
Great. So what we're going to do is we're going to obviously put this entire webinar up, but also we're going to put up just the film separately.
No, I think
Okay. Oh,
you want? Yeah, maybe we'll put.
yeah,
up the
we
film
are.
separately.
Yeah, we are.
Some
Okay.
short form is
Yeah,
good.
we are. All right.
Let's
So
not argue about this now. Thanks for tuning in with us. Thanks for spending a little time talking about something we're really worried about, and at the same time have a lot more hope today than we did yesterday. And so we hope that you kind of had the cliffhanger. You're feeling some hope too, and we can move forward in a really positive way and see some great things happen with Old Trappers Lodge.
Marcia, so Damien, if you could mute your microphone, and we're going to say goodbye to you. And Damien, I'll talk to you tomorrow about the 17
About
other
everything.
preservation projects we're working on.
Kristen, thank you. I'm sorry your AV wasn't working so great, but if anyone wants to hear from Kristen, she was so eloquent in a couple of comments that she made to the LACCD board, and you can find those on that dedicated webpage. There are links to the timestamps, and she spoke very passionately about her family and this artwork.
Okay, so Marcia, I'm gonna set you up and have you say goodbye to us. So Marcia, this is an incredibly complicated situation.
Yeah.
It involves a negotiation with a bureaucratic entity, the Los Angeles Community College District, which is a formidable entity to have on the other side of the table.
Yes.
And we really need everyone who cares to help us figure out next steps and get LACCD to give us some time, and ideally have the community college district reappropriate this, I think, because I think what they did by donating it is they washed their hands of it. But we really want the LACCD, the community college
To be
district,
responsible
to
for
be
it.
responsible and put out a proper
Yes.
request for proposals. And
Yes.
so you have an attorney, and I'm hopeful that there will be very fruitful, not too complicated, but fruitful and relatively straightforward conversations to get to a good solution. And so, Marcia, what is your closing thought for everyone after having walked with us for about an hour now, hour and 10 minutes?
So doing the right thing is very seldom the easiest thing to do. Doing the right thing usually is the hardest thing to do. But we want the right thing to happen here. We want to roll back the clock. We want the request for placement done by Pierce College. We want them to hold to their original agreement that they would preserve and conserve our grandfather's collection, which was donated to them in good faith. There was money supplied for
Yep.
it to be preserved, and there's no accountability for any of that. And you see from the pictures the current condition. The whole purpose was for education. They were doing school, kids were coming, and they were supposed to have had information about history for each of the statues. Things just didn't happen, and now
There's no interpretation on the site.
There's no interpretation.
really odd.
So how can you interpret if it's good or it's bad when you don't know the history? So I'm just hoping that there will be a new life for this collection, someplace where we have genuine people that will honor their word and do a better job than what's happened now.
Good. So I've put on the screen the URL for our preservation page about this. I think this is the best place to check in. We have a contact form on the website. Send us an email, communicate with us via social media. Kim, you're very good at all of that stuff.
Oh, I'm wired.
Yeah.
And let's just do it for the old trapper, because he would have done a lot for any one of us who are in a tough situation.
Yeah.
You can tell that by looking at his work, from reading about his life, and from just feeling all the palpable love that's coming from everyone who knew him and all the people who remember Old Trappers Lodge, the original. There's a lot of people out there who do, and we just need to connect with them. So I think with that, we're just going to look into the future and see where it takes us.
Yes.
And hopefully that'll be somewhere really cool.
Perfect. Thank you, Damien. I'm gonna throw you out of the room
Toodaloo.
I'll call you tomorrow just to loosen the screen. I'm gonna remove him from the room. There we go. Marsha, I'm gonna close this screen, and it's just us. I'm so sorry that Kristen is not here, but we need to move.
She's a huge asset. She's a huge asset. So I'm sorry that you missed her as well.
Continues to be. Okay.
Yeah.
So Marsha, I want to thank you for everything. I want to tell you that thoughts have wings, and the path opens before us, as you know, as you see, and we experience every day as we talk on the phone. And I want to thank you. Everyone will keep you posted via all the channels that we have. And Marsha, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Thank you
night,
so
folks.
much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.
Okay, and Kim, we're gonna say
Do the
goodbye.
thing that we do. Oh, look, a kitty cat.
We're gonna
You can't do
say
a
goodbye.
webinar without a kitty cat.
Okay, go grab the cat. 'Cause Damien
Alrighty.
wants to see the cat.
Alright.
Okay, I'm gonna take my headphones off because we're not communicating. Okay, I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll keep you posted. Kim, waiting for Kim to bring the cat in this week. Is this Numa?
Yeah, he was easier to catch. Numa wants to say hi to everybody.
Numa has a lot of fans. He's a very good cat. All right, thank you so much. That was good. I'm gonna stop the recording and say goodbye.
Goodbye. We'll catch you next time. Take a walking tour with us. We do that too. Baby, is it dinner time?